I got this big pimple right here, and I already know it's gonna record me. It's gonna frustrate me this entire recording session. What's up? So guys, all you guys watching here, you're into comic books, right? I mean, you watch my channel because you yourself are a big enjoyer of comic books and comic book culture and all that sort of stuff. But I don't collect only comic books, and I don't read only comic books. I collect another medium called manga. Now, what is manga? It's something like this right here. And you've probably heard the word manga before. I mean, a lot of LCSs have a whole dedicated section to manga. And a lot of you people probably have heard that word before, but you don't really know what it is. So I'm here to tell you guys exactly what manga is, and actually tell you, like, kind of educate you on what it is, the differences between manga and comic books, as well as maybe tell you some of the pros about reading manga, because I'll tell you, comic books is awesome, collecting comic books is awesome, but collecting manga is arguably a lot more awesome, and I'll tell you why. So first off, if I had to give you like the most digestible, like easy way to explain what exactly manga is, it's a Japanese comic book. That's what it is. It's a Japanese comic book. It's a story. There's panels, there's dialogue all in it. It looks like a comic book, except it's a Japanese comic book. The writers and the artists are Japanese. The story, for the most part, in most of these are based in Japan. The characters are Japanese. They eat Japanese food. They go to Japanese high school, right? It's a Japanese comic book in the most simplest terms I can put it. But some key distinctions, and this is a big one right here. So on your regular comic book, you would have the spine on the left and on the right. On the right would be just where you would flip through it. This one, it's reversed. So manga is reversed. So you have the actual spine of the book on the right, while you flip through on the left. So that's a big difference, which I know can be kind of confusing. And it's also the same way when reading it. So when you're reading a comic book, you'll be reading left to right. When you're reading manga, you're going to be reading right to left, which I know can be very, very confusing. And I'm going to be recommending some stuff for people to read out there. I know can be very confusing. And if you don't want to read manga after watching this video, I get it, man. It's definitely super difficult when you're first getting into manga from reading comic books all your life. I get it. Reading on the opposite side, it's different. I get it, right? But that's just how it works. That's just how manga operates. So other key significance when it comes to manga in terms of story is, I would say, it's similar to comic books. There is kind of like a lot of different stories. I will say, like, manga is all pretty much not focused on superheroes. I mean, there is some like superhero-ish manga out there, but for the most part, like, it's not really. Like, do you have some examples? Like this one here, One Punch Man. It does involve heroes and superheroes and stuff like that. So there are exceptions, but for the most part, well, I mean, literally My Hero Academia, I guess this isn't a good example. But for the most part, like, superhero comic books isn't really like a thing, or a superhero manga. I mean, there's not a ton out there. It usually evolves about a lot of other different things. And one thing about manga is it can kind of get a little complex and a little fleshed out. Like, for example, let's talk about this one. This is Bleach. This is my favorite manga series of all time. And yeah, I love Bleach. It's confusing as all hell, though, because there's so much you have to learn about this series when it comes to stuff like, oh, they have they can channel energy with a thing called spiritual pressure, and they live in a place called the Soul Society, and they're not humans, and their swords have personalities and characteristics. It's weird. It's really weird to explain. But Bleach is awesome, by the way. I love Bleach so much. But yeah, there's a lot about manga that can be kind of a lot to digest, but that's just some of like the bigger ones. Like, there's a lot of like power level and powers you have to understand. Some could be confusing, people switching into all sorts of different type of powerful forms. It can be confusing, but there are a lot of other manga out there that's a lot more digestible. For example, this one right here, this is called Way of the House Husband. This is a lot easier to digest. This is pretty much a story about a Yakuza member who dropped the life of being a Yakuza member and is settled down with a woman and is now a everyday house husband. And there's a whole bunch of wacky situations where people are scared of him because he looks like a Yakuza, and he's doing funny things involving being like a Yakuza, but he's just doing regular stuff, like he's shopping for groceries, and it's a really funny series. So there's a lot of other series out there that are a lot more easy to digest like this, but that's just not all of them. Like a lot of the popular ones, they get into like a whole different thing. There's a lot of explanations in them, but it's still really, really good. Another thing about manga is, again, for the popular ones, it is long as all hell. Like long as all hell. My favorite series, like I said, is Bleach, and there are like 600 or 617, 600 something like that, over 600 chapters of Bleach, which a chapter is about the same, if not a little less so, than like your average issue of a comic book. So take that as you will. That's 600 issues. Now, granted, you don't have to buy each individual issues, at a time, but that's just how it is. There's a lot to read out there. But for people who like reading, that's fine. They like reading. They like doing that. So I mean, that's fine. So let me talk to you a little bit about some pros to manga. Now, first off, there are a ton of different things with a ton of different stories out there, and there's really a series for everyone. If you're more of a comedy-focused guy who likes having a laugh when reading, there's a bunch of comedy ones out there for you. And for some of the bigger ones, there is a lot of other cool stuff too. There's a manga series about young ninjas who live in a village and they have superpowers. There's one like Bleach where they're metaphysical ghost samurai that save people living in a town. Pirates that can't swim. There's really a series out there for everybody, and a lot of them are very, very interesting. It's just like they're long. So if you like reading, manga is really a good thing. Speaking of reading, you get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to manga. I know people will spend like $10, $15 on a single issue of a comic book. It's like that thick, right? Not too much going on there. This is one volume of Bleach, right? And look at how thick that baby is. That is so much going on there. Let me see how many pages there are of this. So one volume, and I will say like a volume is at most $20, right? For the most part, it's around that like $11, $15 range. So yeah, this is like, let's see here. This is 200 pages of manga here in issue in a volume 47 of Bleach right here. And what this cost me? This cost me $10 American, right there, $10 American. So yeah, I spent $10 for 200 pages of a book. That's pretty good. So if you're into reading and getting a lot of reading material for your buck, manga is such a good way of doing it. Secondly, like very similar to comic books, again, if you are on reading, there's a ton of websites out there where you can read the stuff for free, but really you should be buying the actual things to support the creators. It really does. A lot of people put a lot of time into money, and for manga specifically, a lot of this stuff is just honed by one person. Like this Bleach, for example, or something like Dragon Ball. These both are a one-man show who makes the stories, who draws the artwork, all of it. Just a one-man show. So you really do need to support these guys. If you are considering getting into manga at all, I would support the original creator. So yeah, man. Secondly, and this is a very, very important one, collecting manga and reading manga is a lot more affordable than collecting comic books. I mean, a lot of these slabs, I didn't even pay less than $30 on one of these. Like, all these slabs are at the bare minimum. I paid $30 for them, right? I could have got, for $30, I could get 3 different series of manga. That's a bunch of new reading material. That could be number ones, filling out issues of a single run I got, or if you want to get even more crazy, you can get a light novel for like $20. Yeah, this is $20, a light novel. This is also Bleach, a light novel, and look at how much reading material that is. Now there isn't any pages to go off of, but because it's a novel. But again, if you're on the reading side, there's plenty of stuff out there for you. This is 400 pages, so yeah. So it's a lot more affordable. Most manga, like I said, $10 for like the bigger scale books. They're like $20. This right here, this is a hardcover of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This is $20. Yeah, so for $20 for a hardcover volume. Yeah, and again, this is like how many pages is this? This is 500 pages. Jesus, this is like an entire book right here. 500 pages worth of some manga action, and this stuff is actually comic book stuff, right? This is actually comic book stuff with panels. So yeah. Also, another thing, a lot of this stuff is in black and white, and there's no color to them, but that's just how manga operates, right? Thirdly, I guess, manga has another medium to where you can enjoy them. So I know there's a lot of people who like comic books, like the characters, because of the movies and the animated shows and the CW shows and all that stuff. They like that because of that. That's what got them into that. You can enjoy this stuff also the same way. Now, I will say not every manga series out there has an adaptation, but for the most part there is. Anime is a adaptation of manga, and yeah, but for some of the more popular series, there's a lot more episodes. An episode of mangas, or an episode of anime, I mean, is around 20-ish minutes. So yeah, and so for example, let's say you're a big fan of Way of the House Husband, and you wanna maybe relive that in in a different way. Maybe you want to see the show that's on Netflix. There's an anime adaptation on Netflix for this manga. There's 2 seasons of it, and yeah, it's a great adaptation. It almost follows it to a key. And that's another thing with these adaptations. It's not like your big budget scale movies where they take some liberties. They don't follow the comics exactly. So if you're somebody who likes stuff that's comic book accurate and super down to the point, manga to anime adaptations are almost like note for note, bar for bar, line for line, straight from the manga. So if that's something that's your job, if you're somebody who wants the adaptation to be exactly like the source material, you cannot go wrong with this medium, man. It is awesome. So yeah, guys, that's just kind of what I have to say to you guys. If you are looking for stuff to read on manga, if you see this video and you're like, hey, you know, I might be interested in potentially reading some of this stuff, let's talk about it. So the series is very long right here. Like I said, Bleach. This is my favorite manga series of all time. I love Bleach more than a lot of actual comic book series. It's awesome. It's one of those series where it's really hard to explain on a video to people that don't really know anything about Bleach, but I promise you it is an awesome series. You can read it online for free, or you could buy the first volume, which is like 200 pages worth of content for $10 online on Amazon, something like that. So yeah, I really recommend this series. It's awesome. If you're more somebody who likes the comedy element of something, like I said, Way the House Husband is really cool. It's a super funny series. This One Punch Man is also kind of a comedy, but it's also an action comedy, so there's that to it. If you want something that's kind of crazy, but also has a lot of action, like there's a lot of weird stuff that happens, but there's also a ton of action that happens, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is your jam. Yeah, it's an awesome one. And this is one of the few stories where like the first little bit of the story actually takes place in America, and they have American names. This guy's name is Joseph. So yeah, take that as you will. It's a very crazy series. Or if you want, there's you can pick whatever one. There's so many ones involving school, but there's this one right here, My Hero Academia. It's a very popular series. I don't recommend getting into the community of it because it's very toxic, but it's pretty much a series about kids in a world where heroes exist, and you can be a hero if you go to a hero academy. Pretty much their version of high school is a hero school, and you can use that school to hone your powers. A lot of people have powers in the show, and in the actual book, I mean. And the main character of the book actually doesn't have powers, but he gets powers later. So that's a cool little thing. And so yeah, those are some of the stuff I have to recommend, guys. If you find manga interesting and you started reading manga because of this video, let me know. That'd be awesome, guys. And read Bleach. It's awesome now. But seriously, guys, this is what manga is. And if you were anyway curious, like, hey, I always see these sections in my local comic book shop. What is this? What is manga? What is this stuff about? I hope this helped you in some way. I really do, because this medium is really awesome, and I know a lot of people who are in the comic book space are a little bit older, and this is more of a medium that are directed towards like my generation, like the younger folk like to read these. So if this is something that you may be interested in, I hope this helped. I really hope this video helped, and I hope you guys get to reading out there. So anyway, thank you guys for watching the video. We're getting really close to 300 subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you do subscribe. We're like 4 subscribers away. So yeah, anyway, that's been Obito, guys. See ya.